Since the anime is currently coming out weekly on Netflix, the manga is still releasing monthly chapters, it makes perfect sense to make a video about the Summer Hikaru Died and why I have been enjoying both versions of this pretty neat story. Both its anime and its manga are pretty great, so I'm just going to talk about some of the stuff that I really have been enjoying about both its anime and manga adaptation. Some minor spoilers about the series because I'm going to put manga panels on screen, but I won't discuss major plot points or anything like that. I'm going to use manga panels, but there won't be anything too ridiculous. I mean, as I say, both the anime and manga are currently still releasing, so this is not a concluded story as of recording right now. However, in the manga, a lot of the mysteries surrounding core characters have been explained a bit, but not fully. But don't worry, I won't be spoiling any of this sort of stuff. So, what do I actually like about this series? Well, let's talk about the artwork first. I absolutely adore it, as well as how the anime interprets said art. The manga for this series is absolutely just mwah, love it. It has some of the most unsettling and intriguing artwork and paneling I've seen from a manga in a very long time. And even during the less intense and less plot relevant scenes, during like nonchalant character dialogue, the artwork very much reminds me of Tatsuki Fujimoto's work in Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch. Just during like dialogue scenes, it has like a similar twinge to it. I don't know how I'll explain it. It just reminds me of Fujimoto. But I mean, just look at this stuff. It can get very avant-garde with its visuals in the manga, with its paneling, and I think it's really cool. I remember seeing this page for months upon months and not knowing where it's from. Turns out this is from Hikaru. I love how the manga looks and is adapted very well into the anime, alongside the audio design and the editing choices. So far, it's fantastic at building tension and making things all nice and creepy in a way that is very reminiscent of the manga in the best possible way. One scene in the manga though, which isn't like a huge spoiler, is this scene towards I think around chapter 30 or so, with the hanging legs that like keep getting closer. Oh, I love this sort of stuff. It looks so great. I absolutely adore it. It's so cool to me. I can't wait to see how they pull this off in the anime, but it'll probably have to be a second season if I'm completely honest, because it's a bit later on. But something I love more than the visuals and the audio is the actual story itself. The Lovecraftian themes surrounding it, as well as how the emotions presented to us from the other Hikaru are always fascinating and unnerving. The thing that fascinates me most about this story, however, is just how the concept is presented to us from the start. When I first heard about this story and I read a brief synopsis, I was under the assumption that the story would be as such. Main character's friend goes missing in the mountains and is assumed dead, until he appears back randomly days later, and I assumed the narrative would be centered around proving that this friend isn't actually who he says he is. He's a doppelganger, a fake. But as soon as I read the first chapter, for context here, I read a few chapters a while back before the anime came out. When I read the first chapter, I was immediately shocked that the story was going in the complete opposite direction. Instead of it being an invasion of the body snatchers or John Carpenter's The Thing, where the plot centers around finding these fakers, these doppelgangers, and eliminating them, to put it nicely, Yoshiki and this Hikaru kind of immediately turns that notion that I first had on its head. Within the first chapter, Hikaru admits that he's not the real Hikaru, he's something else. And yet, despite that fact, Yoshiki, initially out of a combination of desperation and denial over his closest friend's death, and these emotions being further confused through this creature threatening his life as well, Yoshiki just kind of goes with the flow, so to speak, immediately recognizing that this isn't Hikaru, but even if a fake is all that's left, he still wants Hikaru around, fake or not. Which makes it all the more fascinating that over time, Yoshiki appreciates the fact that this creature inhabiting Hikaru and the Hikaru he knew for years, despite them wearing the same face, they're completely different people. But both of them want one thing desperately, for Yoshiki not to leave him behind. Now, I love this. As I say, lots of other stories with the same overall concept would center around finding out if this Hikaru is actually fake, but the story just kind of threw me for a loop and just says, yeah, the main character knows he's a fake, but it's all he has left, so he wants to keep him around, and I love that. Now this ties in great to the other things that I love about Hikaru, right? He is in nature Lovecraftian. He isn't human, he is something that we cannot comprehend physically, right? We cannot understand what he is. I mean, just look at the blob that shoots out of him. Like, we don't know what he actually is. We kind of do a little bit know about it in the manga, but whatever, right? He's Lovecraftian. So everything he does should kind of be looked at through that lens. He is by nature a being beyond our full understanding. However, through him inhabiting Hikaru's corpse, becomes this dangerous and confused amalgamation of both human emotions and an existence that we should not even look at or understand, let alone something we should stick our hands inside of. Speaking of which, are they in love? LGBT? One thing I love about Hikaru as this confused Lovecraftian creature is the turmoil we are shown. The closest comparison I can make to another series is that of Ancient Magus Bride. The relationship between Elias and Chise is very reminiscent of the relationship of Yoshiki and Hikaru, a relationship between a human and a possible hundreds or thousands of years old eldritch creature. The reason I say this specifically is that these two are both beings outside of the realms of what humans should really know about. Yet despite that fact, they feel a very unique kind of love. Due to the fact that they're both non-human, the type of love they feel is not the same thing we feel. Like Elias, for example, is just kind of a blank slate. And he just kind of bought Chise so she can be his wife, which, yes, is creepy and strange, because he thought that's what he needed for a happy family, despite the fact he doesn't really have a strong concept of what love on an emotional level actually is. The same thing kind of goes for Hikaru. He is very much new to being human, and as such he's learning what emotions are as soon as he feels them, and this is further deepened through both of these characters not really caring about human life overall because of what they actually are, like what their actual true nature is, which makes these characters kind of have to come to realizations that either all life is precious or Chise and Yoshiki are just exceptions and the rest of the filthy humans just don't matter at all. But because of this, their actions are still ironic because they don't dislike humans, they aren't malicious towards them. They just don't understand nor care for them, as they are outside of their understanding as we are of theirs. They are just acting how a creature from outside of the human realm of understanding would act. The new Hikaru is something no one should try to understand, let alone be friends with. It's a Lovecraftian creature that has no concepts or morals for love, and the way Hikaru's flippant nature towards all life is it's deeply disturbing and intriguing, and I love it. One thing that I also quite very much enjoy about this series is its setting. The setting itself is something I also love in Hikaru. The series, not the person or the creature. I've always loved horror stories that take place in remote, rural Japanese villages like Higurashi, Shiki, Elfen Lied. I love these sorts of settings because it allows the characters to be justifiably left to their own devices. There is no real police force, no army presence. Like, who the hell are you going to tell if your best friend has just been replaced with a skinwalker? Anyone you could tell about, your friend being replaced has just as little resources as you. So you're just kind of screwed on your own out in the boonies. And it also works to the advantage of these stories as it helps them organically lead themselves into the history of their own settings and how, all these horror stories are always linked to some sort of old ritual in these villages. Like, if there's ever an anime or a manga set in a remote Japanese village, there is always going to be some sort of ritual that took place or needs to take place to keep some kind of god or entity at bay. I mean, even Dandadan did it, right? But in conclusion, I don't want to make a more in-depth video about Hikaru at the moment, since the manga is still ongoing and it's getting really, really good. I suggest you check it out, and the anime is about 4 episodes deep at this point. I can't really talk about anything concretely. If the anime was done, I'd talk about everything covered in the anime, but it's not. Same with the manga, so I'll have to wait before I cover it in a more in-depth fashion. But overall, Hikaru is a series I very much enjoy, and I'm currently enjoying. If you have any interest in Lovecraftian horror, or just horror anime and manga in general, I highly recommend you get into the series, and yeah, that's about it. Cheers my doodles, hopefully see you in the next one. Peace.